Hello, it's Bucky here again. Just wanted to follow up this part on the foreclosure. Today, we're going to talk about the three phases of foreclosures and what that means and kind of recap some of the things that we spoke about earlier and draw all those things into perspective here so you guys can understand, really what are the different phases and how it affects the homeowner and how it affects us as we're buying these properties. So now that we know the two main type of foreclosure, we are familiarizing ourselves with our own state laws, depending where the property is. So we may have to go look at other, state laws just to ensure if we're buying properties in other states. So let's break down these three phases of a foreclosure that we'll come across. So when most people talk about foreclosure, they're referring to one, two, three of these phases. Okay. People get involved in different parts of these different phases. So we want to really break it down so you can understand what that means. For example, let's say a homeowner is falling behind in his house. The payments demonstrate, the first phase, which is going to be before the auction. Okay. The people on the courthouse steps bidding frantically on this property in the second phase of the foreclosure and the auction itself. So those are really kind of the three analogies, the three phases. And the last part is the family being removed from their house by the sheriff. That is really the third phase of example of what foreclosure phases are. Okay, after the auction, when the family loses their home. Foreclosure isn't a pretty picture, right? But as real estate investors, we're in business. We're investing. We're working with you people, with people. And we're working with people in the foreclosure market. People are experiencing real heartache and real hardship. I mean, some of these people are losing their home for years. So it gets pretty sensitive. And a lot of these people don't have anywhere to live. Some people could go homeless. So we're very sensitive to this process. We want to just really help everybody out in the situation and find the best solution for them. The three main causes of foreclosure from what we've seen is number one, divorce, number two, job loss, and number three, unexpected medical expenses. When we think about those things, they drastically affect the lifestyle of the family. They drastically affect, the income of the family, and it just puts everybody in a dire circumstance. So as I work through the foreclosure market, I have the opportunity to help people who are devastated by these circumstances that they're now in. Right now, they could be really stuck on that railroad track with the train barreling down at them. I'm not a counselor, but we almost become, a sounding board for them to really just figure out, is there a way out of this? That's our goal, is to step in and give a helping hand. So as you work through solving these problems, the more problems we can solve, better situations results for the homeowners, and we really just get to help more people this way. Okay. So let's talk about phase one. So this is phase one. It's called before the auction. The first phase is before the auction. When we're dealing with a homeowner that is being foreclosed on by a lender, the owner is in a default of his mortgage or deed of trust. When you hear somebody say they are in foreclosure, they're likely to referring that they're in the pre-foreclosure stage, okay? Which is right before the auction. This area of foreclosure should be the main focus if you're looking to buy pre-foreclosure properties, because this is where you can get involved early to help the owner. And once it goes further down to the courthouse, you have less traction and less solutions. So just think about a funnel here. The earlier you get involved, the more options you have. The less you get involved, there's not as many options. Okay. So what happens at phase two? Phase two is at the auction. The second phase we're going to talk about here is at the auction. This is where the property is put up for sale to the public through an auction. Many investors like ourselves will purchase property at the auction and find some really great deals. However, this doesn't work for all investors. It's too hard to compete, with the big guys, and oftentimes, really, the banks buy their own properties back. So you're not going to get a really amazing deal if their mortgage is not going to allow it, right? Because the banks don't want to lose that much money. They'll buy it back and then resell it, or wait for another investor to pick it back up. So there's a lot of big guys too out there like us that have a lot of cash at these auctions. I mean, we look at every property, every solution a little bit different depending on our months, where we're at. We have goals on the number of properties we like to buy, and depending on the cash flow, we may step in to do a few auctions, but most of the time we get involved early on, so we don't even have to reach those steps of the auction. But in some areas of the countries, you'll find all kinds of people just run the auction to try to buy properties. Okay, they'll bid it up. They don't even know what it's worth. They've never even seen it. That becomes the difficult part. We like to know what we're getting ourselves into. You have to get a really good deal at an auction in order to maximize opportunity and minimize risk. So depending on where you live, you may have heavy competition or very little competition, okay, when you're going to buy these properties. If you live in an area like that, then you want to network with the bigger guys, because what happens, these guys have cash, right? So oftentimes we will network there. We'll use that as a networking opportunity and find out what type of properties they're interested in. Because sometimes we buy properties and we turn around and if our portfolio is full this month, then we will hand them off to another investor to finish buying the property. Sometimes, like when we're networking, we'll not sell the property at a huge discount, when they're on the courthouse, meaning that the bank will buy it back, right? And they don't always let these properties go really cheap. So we just have several options there, but that's really the second phase, is when you're looking at the auction. That's where we're at. So there's other areas that will not have a problem, but it'll still make it hard for you to buy at an auction. They require cash. This is another reason why it's important to find out the rules and regulations of foreclosure, right? Cash is king, especially if the economy turns. You want to have as much cash as you can to buy as many properties as you could. So when you go to an auction, I would suggest just going and watching. Don't wait till you find a property that you want to go buy. I would go and watch a couple auctions first, just to really get a feel of things. If you're interested in finding out how much you have to come up with on the day of the auction, what kind of deed you'll get, if there's a redemption period, all these things affect when you buy at the auction. Okay, so that's why I say take your time, go to the auction, figure out what's going on. It's also important to research the properties that you're interested in purchasing, because there may be 4 or 5 properties that go up for sale, and you don't want to get confused, bid on the wrong property. So I caution you, as if you're trying to buy foreclosures, do your due diligence, take your time, watch a few auctions before you even step your foot in there. And the best way is to really get involved before it gets to that point. So let's walk through a scenario here. Say on a Saturday morning, you see a notice in the newspaper of a foreclosure auction being held on Thursday morning, right? The area the house is located. Houses are selling for, say, 85 to 90 grand, and the house is bank owned for 22,000. Looks like there's quite a bit of equity. So we jump in the car, we drive to the property. Doesn't look bad, it just needs a little paint and clean up, right? That's what everybody says. Paint and clean up. You notice it's vacant, so you leap out of your car, you look through the windows, you're surprised to see it's really nice on the inside. Even the carpet appears to be in good shape. You start getting really excited. Thursday arrives, you head over to the county courthouse for the auction. You get the winning bid for $32,500. Okay. You spruce up the home, put your for sale by owner in the front yard. You get an asking price of $85,000. Right. You go to the closing, pick up your check, you should have a profit of 45,000, right? If you take 32.5 minus 85,000, it's 45,000. After you're, subtracting any repairs or closing costs and so on. So you think this is great, right? At the closing, you look at the check and it's only for 14.5. You're like, what happened? That's real estate. So it's actually, you jumped into this too fast and you made a big mistake, right? Because you neglected to do any research other than look at the house and didn't know there was a first mortgage lien of 42.75 and back taxes of 800 on the property. It was in fact the second mortgage that was foreclosing, not the first. But you were fortunate enough because you had enough equity to cover that first mortgage, but you paid more than the house is worth. So the lesson here is never buy at an auction unless you do your due diligence. You never know what you're getting into on these properties. Buying a property at auction does not guarantee a clear title, right? As you could see here, they just auction off the second. There may be some liens that will be attached to the property. Usually junior liens are wiped out through the auction process. However, some liens have been filed in the junior position and move into a senior position, such as tax liens. Taxes always will have to be paid when they transfer property. Okay? It doesn't matter. You should always do a preliminary title search before you purchase the property. Go see what's out there. Go see what's against it. Okay. Another thing you have to be careful of the fact that many times you cannot get into the house, meaning that you don't know what you're getting into. Bank does not own it yet. Sometimes, as an investor, will approach the owner the day before the auction and be able to see inside, but don't count on that, right? They want to stay in their house as long as they can. Their house is being auctioned off, right? They're not going to let anybody in. It's an emotional experience for that homeowner that's being foreclosed on. But realize the night before the auction, the owner may trash the house and do some crazy serious damage in a very short period of time. Some of them have ripped out all the plumbing, ripped out all the sheetrock, sold their heat and air unit, sold their hot water heater, all those things. They can do crazy things. And those are big ticket items that add up in a hurry. So always be prepared for the worst case scenario, and hopefully you'll be pleasantly surprised. Okay. So as I caution you, we went through a couple scenarios here on what could happen and what has happened and what will happen to you. So I caution you, just be careful as you're going through the steps of buying a property at an auction, knowing all the risks that's going into that. Okay. Let's talk about the third phase, after the auction. The third phase is after the auction. Okay, it has taken place. And let's back up here. The third phase is after the auction if the bank has taken the property back. Property is now in foreclosure. Sometimes a foreclosure is referred to as an REO, meaning real estate owned by a bank, or a repo possession. You may be able to buy directly from the bank if you approach them within 2 to 3 days. After that, they will list the property with a realtor. In some areas of the country, you can find great deals on bank-owned properties. In other areas, the banks want way too much. They don't want to budge. But even in the areas where they're overpriced foreclosures, understand that the properties do not sell and have them on the books for a long period of time. The bank will start coming down on prices. I like to buy bank-owned properties in December, right? All the banks typically use a calendar year, closing out their books, and they have to get stuff off their books that's hanging out there. So oftentimes you can make a deal, right? Bankers will make deals. Be friends with the bankers. Additionally, we talked a little bit about, there's other types of foreclosures we mentioned. There's government foreclosures. There's properties that have gone through that process, and those are auctioned off, right? So HUD, VA foreclosures, they actually have an online auction where you can buy those. And that gives you a little bit of time, but again, all those things that we cautioned you about so far are the things that we are preparing ourselves for when we're going to buy property. You have to just keep those in mind. Okay. So here's another caution on the HUD homes. It's a great option, like if you're prepared to do this and you're wanting to buy a home that you want to live in, because a lot of these HUD homes, they save those for, they oftentimes they align them up to sell to individuals that want to move in them, right? And so a lot of their properties will be to bid on if you plan on to own or occupy, right? If you're not, then a lot of times those properties aren't available for a bid on. So be cautious when you are bidding on HUD homes if you go that route. So remember that. What else? We talked about after the auction stuff. We talked about dealing with a bank. And I think that should cover most of it here. We could talk about another phase. Let's talk about one more phase. There's one more phase to foreclosure. It's where you can purchase the property. If you live in a state where there's a right of redemption after the auction, you can still purchase the property. A few investors like ourselves focus on that period by contacting the owners, have them waive their right of redemption, and negotiate with the bank to do a discount. So that gets really complicated. So what that means is we can actually waive that right and then go directly to the bank and negotiate, okay? But the best area that we focus in on is the pre-foreclosure before it gets to that point, okay? There's much more flexibility there. Again, we have much more wiggle room. As we get down to the foreclosure process, there's not as many options. We like to have options when we buy real estate. So let's talk about pre-foreclosure a little bit more, because that's where we like to spend our time, and why to buy there, right? First of all, there's tremendous opportunities, right? We have lots of options, and when we have lots of options, we can help a lot of different people, okay? In turn, we have more solutions to help individuals out of that pre-foreclosure. Secondly, you can find pre-foreclosures everywhere. I mean, they're all over. People get behind all the time. Doesn't necessarily mean they don't get caught back up, right? A lot of pre-foreclosures, properties go into pre-foreclosure, and yet they never get foreclosed on because they get caught back up on the loan. So you can really come in and be a help to those individuals that are trying to, stay out of foreclosure. A lot of times there's corporate downsizing, divorce rates are up, consumer debt is crazy. More people are facing financial crisis. And that means every day there are new foreclosures being filed. Okay, so this is an abundant opportunity to find, properties to buy, and we look for those. And then thirdly, pre-foreclosures, there is a greater potential to help more people. Again, there's more options. We can get more creative, and the more creative we can, the more people we can help. So buying a foreclosure is an exciting way to, acquire real estate because it helps people, right? I mean, that's what we love to do, is help people buy their properties and help them out of their situation. So you can, typically buy it under market value, and you have the ability to have instant equity. Again, we're not here to, take advantage of people when they're down. We're here to help everybody out of the situation that they're in. So you can purchase, free foreclosures without. There's just not a lot of. Okay, when you go to purchase a pre-foreclosure, there's just multiple different options, right? Giving you great ways to help individuals. Okay, sometimes you can get a homeowner to deed you over the house, right? Sometimes they just need cash to walk away. Sometimes they need cash to move. I mean, we've helped people move out of their properties. So don't think you're stuck, right? We paid off pre-foreclosure, but you have to be careful with that, right? Because if you pay that off, that if you don't have a contract with in place, then nothing happened, right? So you always have to have stuff in writing if you're going to start helping people. It's sad. If you have a good heart and you want to help people, there's still people out there that'll take advantage of it. So there's many different ways to find, these pre-foreclosures. Again, people need debt relief, right? And we can help you. So if you're facing, divorce, if you're facing medical bills that are stacking up, if you're facing job loss, all these factors get into, when you bought the property, these things weren't there. Now they're here. What do you do? So think about that. Let's talk about one more scenario and then we'll end this here today. So let's say you purchase a foreclosure and you don't have to go out and get financing, right? You're curing the loan, which means you're by paying the arranged fees that have accumulated. So basically you're going back and you're paying any past fees, okay? So you can use cash reserves for that. But when you're buying these pre-foreclosures, this is getting too complicated. We'll just wrap it up there, guys. And just know that if you're facing a pre-foreclosure, if you're getting letters in the mail demanding money, if you're behind 1 month, 2 months on your property, just give us a call. We'd love to help you out. Thank you so much.